Here are some of the most common alarms that you must be familiar with when working with patients who are receiving mechanical ventilation. High pressure, low volume, high frequency, apnea, high PEEP, and the low PEEP alarm. Keep in mind that certain machines may include other types of ventilator alarms within their settings. These are just some of the most common examples. But now let's talk more about each type individually. First, there is the high pressure alarm. A high pressure alarm in mechanical ventilation is triggered whenever the circuit pressure exceeds a preset pressure limit during the inspiratory phase of breathing. This is common in respiratory conditions that decrease lung compliance and/or increase airway resistance. The preset high pressure limit for this alarm is typically set around 10 centimeters of water pressure above the peak inspiratory pressure. Some other causes of the triggering of this alarm include coughing, secretion accumulation, patient biting the ET tube, or a kink in the circuit. Next is the low pressure alarm. A low pressure alarm in mechanical ventilation is triggered whenever the peak inspiratory pressure falls below a preset designated level. This most commonly occurs whenever there is a leak or disconnection in the system. The preset low pressure level for this alarm is typically set around 5 to 10 centimeters of water pressure below the peak inspiratory pressure. If this alarm is triggered, the respiratory therapist must first ensure that the patient is being ventilated. If the cause of the alarm is unknown, the patient should be manually ventilated until the source of the leak is identified. Next up is the low volume alarm. A low volume alarm in mechanical ventilation is triggered whenever the expiratory volume falls below a preset low volume threshold. This is useful in ensuring that the patient is receiving and exhaling a minimum tidal volume. Similar to the low pressure alarm, this alarm will also sound whenever there is a leak or disconnection in the system. When this is the case, the respiratory therapist must ensure that the patient is being ventilated and provide manual breaths if necessary until the source of the issue is identified and corrected. The next alarm that we need to discuss is the high frequency alarm. A high frequency alarm in mechanical ventilation is triggered whenever the total frequency exceeds a preset high frequency limit. This is useful in minimizing tachypnea and hyperventilation. The activation of this alarm can occur whenever auto-triggering is present due to an incorrect sensitivity setting. It can also be a sign of respiratory distress, which means that the cause should be identified and corrected as soon as possible. Some potential ways to do so include adjusting the sensitivity setting and/or increasing the pressure support peak flow or FiO2. Next up is the apnea alarm. An apnea alarm in mechanical ventilation is triggered whenever the total frequency drops below a preset low frequency limit. This is useful in ensuring that a minimum number of breaths are delivered to the patient. Also, most ventilators come with a preset apnea period that is typically around 20 seconds, although some allow the operator to adjust this time limit. The activation of an apnea alarm most commonly occurs whenever there is a disconnection in the circuit from the ET tube. When this occurs, the respiratory therapist must ensure that the patient is being ventilated by delivering manual breaths until the source of the disconnection is identified. Another alarm that you need to know about is the high PEEP alarm. A high PEEP alarm in mechanical ventilation is triggered whenever the level of PEEP exceeds a preset high PEEP limit. This is useful in ensuring that too much PEEP isn't delivered to the patient. This alarm most commonly occurs whenever auto PEEP or air trapping is present. Auto PEEP is a complication that occurs when a positive pressure remains in the alveoli at the end exhalation phase of the breathing cycle. This increases the work of breathing for the patient. However, it can be corrected by prolonging the patient's expiratory time. And then there is the low PEEP alarm. A low PEEP alarm in mechanical ventilation is triggered whenever the level of PEEP falls below a preset low PEEP limit. This most commonly occurs whenever there is a leak in the circuit tubing or the endotracheal tube cuff. This alarm is useful in ensuring that a desired level of PEEP is being delivered to the patient. Real quick guys, do me a huge favor and hit the like button. It really helps support the channel and I greatly appreciate it. And while you're down there, go ahead and click the subscribe button as well, because we have a ton of other videos on our channel that I think you will enjoy. As I said before, as a respiratory therapist or someone who works in critical care, it's extremely important to familiarize yourself with each of the different types of ventilator alarms. Because if you don't, how will you know what's going on with the patient? Hopefully this video can help make the learning process easier for you, and with that said, we do have a ton of other valuable materials on mechanical ventilation. So if you want to learn more, I'll drop some helpful links